Hey guys, welcome back. BDCKR here. We're back with our weekly recap of all things Injustice. This is for the week of March 21st, 2024. The current character challenge is Ame-Comi Catwoman. That is a 1-week repeat. The required characters for that are Bane, Joker, and Killer Frost, who are available at Silver, and Challenge Gold, respectively. Her passive is Nasty Scratch, which is a 25% chance to apply bleed, damage over time, and power drain effects on combo ender, and that stacks 3 times. And to be clear, bleed is the type of damage over time. It's not bleed and damage over time as separate things.
Right.
She's got 1,200 attack, 1,400 health, was last available on the 25th of May of last year, 2023.
Right, so good high stats. 1,200 attack, 1,400 total is 26, right? 2,600? That's decent. I mean, I'd like it more in the attack, but you know, what are you going to do? And I still want to really like her. There's something about when we first started playing with the Catwoman and how the bleeds are... the bleeding is the best damage over time, I think, if you're going to be using damage over time. So we want to like her. She just not likable. She does not make it easy to like her. On the one hand, she is quick, like all the Catwomans.
Hard to know how to pluralize.
I guess it depends on whether Catwoman is a thing or Catwomen. Catwoman is like 2 separate things.
Yeah.
And the bleeding on her special 1 stacks, right? That's great. Her passive, it's almost like she doesn't have much of a passive. It really doesn't move the needle for me. It sounds great doing damage over time on just the combo ender, but the combo ender triggers maybe half the time. And then if you trigger it, you only get a 25% chance to bleed. That's like a 1 in 8 chance of bleeding with each tap combo.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time you trigger it a second time, there's a good chance the first one is already finished. So sure, in theory, it stacks up to 3 times.
Yeah.
Typically it doesn't stack. And at the end of her combo ender, it feels like there's a pause or latency period. So the best you can hope for is to block. It's almost impossible, I think, to do a second tap combo immediately. So that's another factor that makes it harder to stack.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you do with her? Using Quake Engine on her can help by prolonging the damage over time. What's kind of bad with her is that her special 2 doesn't do damage over time. It's the reason why she gets full damage for her special 2 instead of reduced damage like almost anyone else whose special has a secondary effect. But you compare that to, say, Arkham Knight Catwoman, whose special 2 does do damage over time, but it's only reduced by 25% damage.
Mm-hmm.
I would prefer Arkham Knight Catwoman so much more.
Yeah, really, at the end of the day, bleed is great, but only if you can apply it consistently. Yeah. And the thing that you're missing here is the consistency. So it happens rarely enough that it doesn't really make a difference. So, you know, tap combo enders are stuff that oftentimes you aren't doing unless you have a reason to do them. Yeah. And so it's not enough of a reason to play her differently. So it ends up being basically useless.
Yeah. So the setup you're seeing in the video uses Quake Engine as her 3rd gear in case we need to rely on her special 1 to bleed someone out. And it also boosts damage output if the opponent doesn't have bar power, which is a nice bonus. You can apply damage over time gears twice with 1 use of her special 2. So that's a little bit unusual. So it might be worth using a damage over time gear as an alternative in the 3rd slot instead of Quake Engine, because she can do a butt ton of damage over time. The problem really still is I haven't found a great use for her. Even compared to other skins of Gold Catwoman. Arkham Knight Catwoman said earlier that's better. Batman Returns Catwoman, also better. Arkham Knight Catwoman has the passive where her damage over time doesn't rinse. And Batman Returns Catwoman has a boost of her damage over time.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're seeing most of the time then as a straight up specialist, she's not awful, because her special 2 can knock out opponents with more than just the last hit. And I guess if you're facing a Blackest Night Flash team, it gives you the option of not using her special 1 and using her special 2 so that you still have a decent amount of damage output. But for that specific case, it doesn't feel like you're getting enough back for that. And, I mean, so maybe, you know, listen, you tag her in right at the beginning, use Master's Death Cart, gets you a free tap combo. A lot of times it'll trigger the combo ender. Maybe you get a free damage over time effect. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, you know, she's maybe not the worst character, but she's definitely not great. I want her to be great. She feels like she should be great the way the passive looks and her stats are, but she's just not.
Mm-hmm. So based off of a challenge reward cycle that has been going on for years now, we expect next week to be Arkham Knight Harley Quinn.
That's a good character.
Mm-hmm.
And we're getting close. April the 4th is the one challenge character in the cycle that we didn't do a demonstration. Demonstration of a weekly recap.
Yeah.
Starting November of 2022.
Cool. This week's multiplayer reward is the Cloak, which becomes the Cloak of Destiny. When it is maxed out, it gives you a crit boost, 50% more damage on crit attacks, a 200% damage increase against stunned opponents, and the evolved ability, which is a 20% stun chance on tag. And this one was last available on the 17th of August, 2023, based off of our pattern of challenge reward cycles, which has again been going on for more than 3 years at this point. Next week, we expect to see Blackest Night Flash as the multiplayer reward.
Cloak of Destiny, very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
For the longest time, it had this really unique ability. It was the only gear that offered boosted damage against stunned opponents.
Yeah.
Later on, the only other gear now that they introduced was Necron Scythe. And it's interesting to compare the two gears, I think. So the biggest part is Necron Scythe has that a slight advantage where it's boosted against frozen opponents too.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have the boosted crit damage. So the Cloak has a bit of an edge there. But Necron Scythe has a bunch of abilities, a couple of them that rely on having your health low, less than 15%.
And then one ability that lets you KO somebody to gain a resurrect.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a toss-up, right? So, but if you're not planning on spending much of the fight with low health, two of Necron's abilities don't come into play.
Mm-hmm.
So, depending on the circumstances, Necron Scythe could be better. But, the Cloak is better in other ways, and it's always the original.
Yeah. Really, both of the gear are only effective if you are regularly stunning the opponent.
Yeah.
And so...
I don't know if that's the only way. I mean, I guess if you're using it as a basic tech, but I think
that's true.
Best
they shine.
Ability, the best ability of each of them is that boosted damage.
The thing that makes them really good. So,
right.
In that respect, for the way that you're using them, most of the time... either of them would be good enough for what you want.
Yeah.
And the real advantage of Necron Scythe is sometimes you want to do the same sort of damage boost, but you're freezing enemies instead of stunning them. And in that case, Necron Scythe is the only one that you can use.
And, I mean, basically it gives you the chance to have that ability on two different characters, right?
That's true, yeah.
Right. So the Cloak's chance to stun on tag-in, it's low. 20% is just 1 in 5. So for a character that doesn't have built-in stun... then you don't get nearly as much benefit, right? Like characters that have built-in stun, we talk about characters that stun on tagging, like Luchador Bane, Earth 2 Flash and Teammates. You can also talk about characters that stun as part of their special, like Batman and Static on their special 1 at the end of it.
Yeah.
But it's still better than no stun effect with Necron Scythe, right? You can't really... be self-sufficient to get the most out of that gear. So the absolute best, I think, though, is that you have characters who stun right at the beginning of a special, and then most of the damage happens after that, after they've stunned them in the middle of the special. Right. So all the Batgirls do that. They have a stun at the beginning of Special 1. Batman Ninja Batman has a stun at, or really near the beginning of Special 2, so that he can do a huge amount of damage. It's why you see some people, when they try to leverage it, they can get like 1 million damage on one hit. And it was a bit of a revelation. So we were always, for a long time, we were playing it to be a special kind of gear. But Arkham Knight Batgirl, because Cloak and Necron Scythe stack, right? If you have both of them, they will do each boost independently, the stun damage. Then when she comes to rescue, Arkham Knight Batgirl comes to rescue one of her teammates, she doesn't need a bar power. If you stack them both and just do a swipe combo, often you can do enough damage. Maybe even if your third gear is increase your crit chance, you're doing enough damage to knock out a fresh opponent with just her basic combo because you're boosting it that much.
Yeah.
The other thing is, stacking them solves that problem. Where sometimes when you do her special 1 and you've timed it wrong and she whiffs on her hit, like she'll stun, and then the kick where she's supposed to do most of her damage doesn't happen, which is awful. but then, they're stunned. So then you just lean in and do a swipe combo and knock them out.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the time, I think it's probably not necessary to stack. It's a waste of resources to put them both on one character, because if you're doing more than enough damage to knock your opponent, it's mainly for show, like, giggles.
Yeah.
Unless you're doing splash damage, which for a lot of characters requires another gear slot.
Mm-hmm. And by resources, it really is often just time resources of redoing your gear loadouts over and over again.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times you're not going to have 2 stun people on the same team. Sometimes you will for fun.
Yeah.
But a lot of times you're only going to have, Batgirl or 1 stun person. But it's nice for you to spend as little time as possible sort of swapping gear out between your favorite teams.
Right. So Cloak of Destiny is great with League of Assassins Knives to do splash damage on Special 1 for the Batgirls. It's great with Fourth World Godly Mace to do splash on Special 2 with Batman Ninja Batman. And it's also really good, like I just said, with Necron Scythe, stacked stun damage, so you're doubling up.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, moving on to moving on to the store.
Yeah.
I should say, and that's a spoiler, it's Arkham Knight Harley Quinn pack. It's $12.99 Canadian, because that's the information we have access to. We're in Canada.
Right. And it's the only currency that matters.
There we go. So this is a corroborating clue, a sort of second piece of evidence that next week's challenge is going to be Arkham Knight Harley Quinn. It doesn't come with credits, but it's priced accordingly, so, it's about half the price that these packs can sometimes be. I guess a little bit more than half the price, because it's $24.99 versus $12.99.
Right.
But important note, it doesn't unlock in your store. So if you're playing next week and you have confidence that you'll be able to get the challenge character, then earn it instead of buying it. It'll always be better for you.
Right.
We also have the Arkham Pack 1 for $24.99, and it, quote, contains 3 powerful random gold cards in the Arkham series. New, just added, Arkham Knight Batman, Arkham Knight Harley Quinn, and the Arkham Knight. Obviously, new is a relative term. It's no longer new.
Right.
But it gives you a 10% chance of Arkham Knight Batman, a 10% chance of Arkham Knight Catwoman. All the rest of these are 10%, so I'm just going to read them out. Arkham Knight the Arkham Knight, Arkham Origins Bane, Arkham Origins Batman, and Arkham Origins the Joker. And then it says 40% chance of gold character. And we actually have those characters from a previous pack opening.
Right, so we did the percentages, like we did to drop like opening packs over and over again to get a percentage. Yeah.
And so from our rough calculations, it should be a 10% chance of Arkham Knight Harley Quinn, and then a 15% chance each for Arkham Origins Deathstroke and Arkham Harley Quinn. So from, those 10, it seems like there'd be 10 characters and a 10% chance of each, but there's actually a 15% chance of sort of the 2, I guess, that they have deemed to be the least desirable.
Yeah, and what's sad is, though, that there's 2 Arkham characters that are missing, and they could have easily added another 4 gold characters instead of adding 3. So it's missing Arkham Killer Croc, and it's missing Arkham Knight Batgirl. And totally unrelated injustice, but I want to point out, we were talking about this before, the search function in Google Docs is not great. So the only reason I was able to figure out when the last time Arkham Pack came around, being September of last year, was because it's been coming out on a cycle of maybe just over 6 months.
Yeah.
And when I did the search, it only found the one from last year, March. And when I did when I just knowing the pattern, I went through some of our notes from around that time, and I was able to find that it actually was September 2023.
Yeah.
Interesting. But it feels like a lot of the packs are on their own independent kind of cycle that are not necessarily tied into either the challenge or the multiplayer reward.
Yeah. So there we go. We have the Ultimate Bundle Bringers of Justice, which is around for its 2nd week. It should be leaving probably relatively soon. Yeah. And then we've got a bunch of packs that have been around for a very long time at this point and are probably not worth mentioning.
Right.
Phantom Zone has 1 more week left. Fight 62 is broken, as always. Last weekend's breakthrough for golds was Lex Luthor, Batman, and Doomsday. This coming weekend's should be Bane, Killer Frost, and Ares. And there is, of course, a link in the description to a thread in the Injustice Mobile subreddit from Devlin16 that goes through the complete breakthrough cycle that you can peruse at your own leisure without needing to listen to us tell you.
Right.
So there we go.
And so this is the part where we talk about glitches. As far as current glitches go, we do go into a lot more detail every time something changes, or really something significant changes, which didn't happen this week. But even if nothing changes, we go into more detailed review once a month, the first week of every month, and most recently that was a recap from March the 7th. But even if there is no update, you don't have to wait for the end of the week, or not the. I guess Thursday is the end of the week for us, or the beginning of the week for some of the Injustice events.
Yeah.
You can see a video tutorial for every working glitch in our playlist. Current working glitches linked in the description of this video and the eye in the top right corner. The main thing worth mentioning is that the challenge reset glitch has been confirmed to be working on this week's Ame-Comi Catwoman challenge.
So there we go. To finish up, we'd like to give a huge thank you to our patrons on Patreon. That is Michael Devries, Irvin, Ruiz, Hoshi127, and Nora Klimek on the credited level, as well as 5x5, who is supporting us on the gratitude tier. Thank you so much for your support, and thanks so much to all of you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Komoda.